My 5 years as Peyton Cizik's backyard pet. For 5 years, Viceroy Peyton Cizik kept me as a caged bird in his estate. When he ordered me to strip, I obeyed without hesitation. I knew how little he valued human life, so yes, I feared him. Feared he'd kill me too, but even my obedience didn't save me. In my past life, I died by poison. When I woke up again, my first act was to marry anything to escape him. Yet somehow, he showed up at my doorstep, demanding my hand that day. Under the blazing sun, Peyton lounged in the main hall, sipping tea with a smirk. Marry me, or watch your family die. Your choice. His voice was calm, almost amused. Why so afraid? Dressed in immaculate white silk, he looked every bit the refined nobleman. But I knew better. I'd seen him drive a sword through a man's throat, blood spraying like a fountain, while he wiped his face clean as if slaughtering livestock. Tell me, how could I not be paralyzed with fear? One glance at him, and I was back in his bed, naked, desperate, feigning eagerness just to survive. Those humiliating nights haunted me. I refused to relive them. "I'm not afraid," I lied, steadying my trembling hands. "But my heart belongs to another. I beg you, Your Grace, don't force this." He stepped closer, his laugh low and chilling. "Not afraid? Then why are you shaking?" "It's just the cold. My robes are too thin." "Really?" His gaze sharpened. "This other, would that be Shin-Yun-Ho of the Gilded Haven?" I nodded, but he cut me off, smirking. "Cloud Bloom, do you want them dead?" As dusk fell, the last light cast his pale face in shadow. My father's voice echoed from the courtyard, announcing dinner. Peyton's expression darkened. "You have one day to decide. Marry me, or your family burns. Your father's investigation into the Crown Prince's corruption won't end well without my protection." He knew about Shin-Yun-Ho. In my past life, the Crown Prince's faction framed my family for treason. My father had begged Shin to smuggle me to safety, but Peyton intercepted me. When I tried to contact Shin for help, Peyton locked me away, taunting, "The Shins are ruined. Stop dreaming of escape." Had orchestrated their downfall too. At dinner, my father toasted awkwardly. "Your Grace honors us, but my daughter is unworthy. The Crown City has far nobler brides." Peyton drained his goblet and stood, eyes locked on me. "Worth is mine to judge." He left with a warning. "I'll return tomorrow for your answer." The air thawed only after he was gone. Memories flooded back, his dungeon screams, limbs severed like vegetables. My father hugged me, promising, "If you refuse, I'll defy him, even at the cost of my life." But defiance meant death. In his arms, I sobbed, "I can't lose you again." Rain pattered the next morning when Peyton arrived. Pristine and smug. "Well, chosen yet." I stood as far as possible, fists clenched. "If I marry you, will my family truly be safe? Who else will protect them?" "Shin-Yun-Ho," he scoffed. The Crown Prince could destroy his merchant empire with one accusation. "Face it, Cloud, you've no choice." He was right. Shin had been my childhood sweetheart, kind and brilliant. My past life letters begging for help had dragged him into ruin. I wouldn't repeat that mistake. "Why me?" I whispered. "Noble women flock to you. What use am I? Your father holds evidence against the Crown Prince. I need leverage, you need survival. A fair trade. No pretense of love, just cold pragmatism. My father, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, had uncovered the Crown Prince's crimes. Without Peyton's shield, we'd be slaughtered. So I agreed, on one condition: no conjugal relations. Peyton chuckled. "Granted, though you're optimistic to assume I do want you." The wedding was swift, but days before the ceremony, Royal advisor's daughter Yvette Sui, Peyton's childhood love, threatened suicide unless he married her too. The emperor decreed a dual union. As expected, Yvette became the favored wife. Peyton spent their wedding night drunk in his study, then breakfasted with her, snubbing me openly. I didn't care. My goal was survival, not affection. With Peyton's protection, the crown prince hesitated to strike, but I remembered the future. The emperor's death, Peyton's bloody rise to power as viceroy, his massacre of the royal family, and I remembered my past life death by poison, likely Yvette's doing this time. I'd play the game smarter. Luckily, things are better than my past life. At least I don't have to sell my body just for food. When my maid, Ah Xiang, had her monthly allowance skimmed, I told her to quietly remind the steward. Does his wife, the one in charge of kitchen supplies, recognize the beautiful woman living in the third house at the alley entrance of Main Street? Then, I casually dropped names of key figures in the household. Those 5 years of eavesdropping on gossip finally paid off. Spring had been nothing but rain, with barely any sunshine. So when the sun finally came out, I decided to stroll in the garden. I'd have gone crazy cooped up inside, and that's when I first saw what Yvette Sui looked like. I in the palace garden. Yvette Sui and Peyton Cizik walked one after the other. She wore luxurious purple robes, her bright eyes sharp with arrogance. When she noticed me, she scoffed disdainfully, then hurried to catch up with Peyton, linking arms with him in a show of fake intimacy. What she missed, though, was the disgust in Peyton's eyes. He yanked his arm free, smoothing out his wrinkled sleeve before his expression settled back into calm. I knew that looked too well. Every time he returned from a trip, he'd bring people back, some missing limbs, others trapped in vats with venomous snakes and scorpions. And when they writhed on the ground, begging for mercy, he'd smile, serene, gentle, and utterly chilling. That smile still haunts me. I shuddered, only for the murderous psycho to glance at me, then turn away like I was nothing. To him, I was just a tool. Well, I thought he'd kill me. Good. I survived another day. Cyrus Bloom wrote that Patriarch Bloom had been demoted after impeaching Yvette's father, royal advisor Yu, for selling government positions and taking bribes. The Crown Prince's faction accused him of acting out of personal spite, claiming it was revenge because I wasn't as favored as Yvette in the palace. Royal advisor Yu had been the emperor's tutor since his princely days. His reputation was untouchable. The emperor was furious, berating Patriarch Bloom for mixing personal grudges with duty. His rank dropped from third tier to a disgraced minor official, now just compiling historical records. With no power to investigate cases, his ambitions shattered. Left to lament his wasted talent and failed loyalty to the throne, Cyrus was also reassigned, becoming governor of Rivertown. Soon to leave the crown city, they were all miserable, while I could barely hide my grin. So this is how Peyton's web works: retreat to survive, with my father and brother in powerless roles. Peyton's people could take their positions, and the crown prince would see them as no longer a threat. Sparing their lives, I picked up my brush to write, figuring it was time to convince Patriarch Bloom to retire. Why grieve? New talents rise with each generation. If you'd rather not waste away in a meaningless post, why not follow Cyrus to Rivertown and open a school? Passing on your knowledge would honor all your years of study. In better times, retiring would have seemed absurd, but with dreams crushed, it sounded like wisdom. I knew Patriarch Bloom. He was like a candle, burning himself out to the last. After Patriarch Bloom had resigned, Yvette seemed determined to outshine me. Showing up daily to pick fights, she mocked my father for overreaching, now slinking home to farm, then sneered that my looks were born to seduce. If I hummed a tune, she called it brothel behavior. If I read a book, it was pretentious. Fed up, I went for a walk. Just as Peyton returned, Yvette seized the moment, collapsing to the ground, wailing that I'd tripped her. Peyton strolled over, amused. I broke into a cold sweat. Last life, had worn the same look, pointing at someone writhing on the ground. Think their legs will keep moving like worms if they're cut off. Then he tested it himself, shaking his bloodied head at me. Nope, doesn't work. I tried to back away, but Yvette clung to my legs, attempting a delicate, fragile act, but overdoing it, like a bad parody. Illyra, how should we handle this? His voice was soft, but the edge beneath it was razor-sharp, waiting for Yvette's answer. Your Grace, she tripped me right in front of you, she's spitting on your authority. A woman like this deserves death. Light, eager. She looked up at him only for her maid to drop dead the next second. Throat slit, blood gushing. Peyton wiped his dagger with a handkerchief, coolly smirking. I saw her trip you, Illyra. I listened. Consider it avenged. I stood frozen. Yvette, catching the maid's body, shoved it away and scrambled back. My legs gave out. I couldn't move. Peyton's lips curled as he watched me, like a songbird in gilded bars, ready to be crushed. That night, the bloodshed haunted my dreams. Midnight, a boiling cauldron of blood outside the courtyard. Peyton stood by, indifferent, saying he'd make soup for everyone to taste. Then I slipped, cold tea splashing toward him, and he slit my throat for ruining the moment. I woke drenched in sweat. A cold wind howled outside, rustling leaves like weeping ghosts, lantern in hand. I crept out. The estate was silent as a grave. My maid slept on the porch, then something fell from the wall. Curious. I stepped closer, and instantly regretted it. He grabbed me, a dagger at my waist. Eyes like a demon's. What are you snooping for at night? Just as I'd shaken off the nightmare, I plunged back into terror. My voice trembled. I just couldn't sleep. Believe me. Before he could answer, he coughed blood, the dagger nicking my skin. I hissed in pain. Killing you is easier than crushing an ant. Speak the truth, or your body will be buried in pieces. His gaze cut through me, watching me shake. He finally smirked. Pretty but useless. Cloud Bloom, if a word of this gets out, you'll vanish without a trace. The moon emerged, casting silver light on his blood-soaked robes. He shoved me to the ground and vanished into the dark. I grabbed my lantern and fled, almost died. Again, every second in this palace feels like a knife at my throat. After the maid's death, Yvette Sui stayed quiet for a few days, but then I heard she'd splurged on some frontier love potion, set up a fancy dinner, and waited for Peyton Cizik to join her, thinking it'd be some passionate, mutual affair. Turns out, when she woke up, the guy next to her wasn't the handsome prince but old Wong IV, the pock-faced slop bucket guy. Peyton Cizik twisted the knife even further, pretending to be heartbroken. Tingwan, you've disappointed me, but you must have enjoyed it, right? Then he had old Wong executed right in front of her, limbs chopped off, eyes gouged out. When I heard, my heart skipped a beat. A woman's chastity means everything, and he went this far, delivering the other man to his own wife's bed. I felt sick for her, and paralyzed with fear for myself. The next morning, I went to see her. The proud royal advisor's daughter now lay in bed like a broken doll. Tears streamed down her face. Here to laugh at me. Don't get too comfortable, my today could be your tomorrow. Seeing her like that took me back to when I'd debased myself for him too. Losing everything, her hollow eyes burned with hate. Peyton said he hates being manipulated more than anything. I got what I deserved. But he won't get away with humiliating me like this. Just wait. It stormed all night. Thunder rolling under black clouds. Yvette begged for a divorce. By evening, her father came to take her home. Then Peyton handed me dissolution of marriage. 2. What? Stunned. You've always loved your brother Shin, right? Now you're free to chase him. He smirked, but when he looked down, his eyes turned vicious. Cloud Bloom, even divorced, if I want you dead, you won't see dawn. Be smart, next time. My knife won't just graze your skin. He leaned in until I nodded frantically. Don't worry. Your Grace, I'll stay far from the Crown City. Our marriage lasted barely 2 weeks. Peyton married me in a whirlwind, then dumped me just as fast as he walked away. His silhouette looked like a storm cloud, full of secrets and rage. I was finally worthless. And finally free. The relief felt unreal. Even as the servants loaded my carriage, I was numb. My chest ached. Like I was trapped in a stuffy room. Groping for light, he didn't see me off. From the moment I got those papers, the Peyton I knew vanished. The carriage rocked to Rivertown. My family threw a welcome feast. But my mind was elsewhere, over wine. My father casually mentioned, "The emperor's been poisoned." No symptoms. Just empty. Like a doll. Everyone's pointing at Peyton. My brother added, "You missed the news. He broke out of prison after Yvette accused him of using Wild West witchcraft. Guards found cursed objects in his estate. He escaped with rebels, but they all died. He's badly wounded. Missing. You're lucky you divorced," they said. His whole household was executed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I end my past life. Had rebelled when the emperor fell ill. My family was jailed, but Peyton took the crown city and kept me. Now, our story was over. The next day, I went to the market, craving childhood sweets, then a commotion, thugs beating a homeless man, through the blood and dirt. I recognized Peyton. He was curled up, barely breathing. I thought I hated him for kidnapping me, for the nightmares, but had never harmed my family. In another life, had even protected me. Bring him home, I told the steward. Maybe someday he'll remember this mercy. Now, I was the one keeping him hidden. His wounds were horrific, lashes, gashes, old scars splitting open. It took days to stop the bleeding. When he woke, he just stared. No words. I force-fed him soup, teasing, "Drink. You're worth 500 gold as a fugitive. So swallow every drop. Stop picking scabs, or it'll chop your hands off." Only during bandage changes did he mumble, "Don't look down." I smirked, trailing a finger down his bare torso. Pathetic. So fragile. Big mistake. His hand locked on my wrist, eyes darkening. "Say that again." I yanked free and bolted. Note: silence was safer. My father invited the Shins to my birthday, hoping to matchmake me with Brother Shin. Peyton had been healing for weeks. ID updated him on the court. The Crown Prince ruled unchecked. Anyone defending Peyton was jailed. The public called him a dirty-blooded traitor. I planned to move him before the party, but had already vanished. Just 2 words on a note. "Wait for me." I knew he'd tear the world apart. And win.at the party. Brother Shin was as gentle as ever, blushing when he saw me. Cloud. Long time no see. Back when we were kids. Had always follow me around, building snowmen, buying candy apples, swearing I'd be his wife someday. I end my past life. He was the only one who came to save me. I never thought that would ruin him. 2. Brother Shin. Long time no see. When I got the letter saying you'd married, I thought I'd lost you forever. His voice was soft. "Remember when we were little, you promised to marry me. I don't want to wait anymore." The breeze lifted his hair. Beaded curtains clinked softly behind him. For a moment, time froze. News exploded from the Crown City. The Emperor was dead. The Crown Prince, too. Peyton Cizik crushed the rebellion and exposed the royal advisor's family for framing him with Wild West witchcraft. No one expected the neglected prince to have secretly raised an army, infiltrating every border. Had waited years for this. Now I understood why Peyton had humiliated Yvette Sui. It was all part of the game. As a child, Peyton was sent to the royal advisor, the empress brother, because the emperor despised him. Their childhood friendship. Just her bullying while he endured. Yvette wasn't causing drama for love. She was a pawn, planting evidence. Peyton knew. Killing her maid was a warning. Humiliating her. Payback. Her final words, "He won't get away with this," meant she'd willingly become the key witness against him and divorcing me. That was his way of sparing my life. Or even now. My wedding to Shin Yun Ho was set for the 8th of next month. An auspicious date. Meanwhile, Peyton became Viceroy Caesar, ruling through an 80-year-old puppet emperor. Everyone knew had killed his way to power. Critics were exiled 3,000 miles away. Tyrant became his brand. I made my wedding dress. My father was thrilled, planning everything, until Peyton showed up unannounced. He took one look at the ivory lace draping our halls, smirked, and ordered his men to rip it down. Didn't even glance at my family before having me gagged and tossed into his carriage. MMMPFH. He yanked the cloth from my mouth just to hear me yell, "Peyton Caesar, I saved your life." Cloud bloom, he said, shoving the gag back in. Who gave you permission to see me naked and marry someone else? MMMPH. Divorce or not? This kingdom answers to me. MMMPH. Yes. I'm a thief. Cry about it. Back in the Crown City, back in his manor's gilded cage, Peyton compensated the shins with lucrative frontier trade concessions. Reinstated my father's position, same old Peyton. Pinning me to beds. Threatening to break my legs if I ran. But new Peyton. Letting me slap him without retaliation. I escaped 6 times, bribing servants. Scaling walls, always dragged back. Why can't you just love me? Head grumble. Do you even know what love is? ID counter, silence. Then his arms would tighten. Love means respect. Choice. I said. You never ask what I want. His chin dropped onto my shoulder. Lips at my ear. Because you'd say no. I hate that word. Peyton was a wounded animal, all teeth. No leash. I taught him patience. Respect. Slowly, he learned to ask instead of command. Eventually, he let me visit home, with guards. But still, my father fumed, yet admired Peyton's reforms, cleaning up the court, passing laws that helped people. Acien, he finally asked. Do you love him? If not, he'll protect you, even from the viceroy. Did I? The fear from my past life was gone. He listened now. But, father, I want marry him. I wanted freedom. The open road. Mountains. Rivers, everything beyond these walls. We plotted late into the night, fake illness. Disguised as a maid. A boat waiting at the river. The plan worked, until I turned on board and saw him. Peyton pressed a dagger into my hand, guiding it toward his ribs. Stab me if it helps, he said. I flung the blade away. Are you insane? Acien. No one ever taught me. His usual glare melted into something raw. As a child, I didn't understand why I was banished to the royal advisors while my brothers stayed in the palace. Yvette tied me up like a dog. For years, I thought that was normal. A shaky breath. I married you to use you, but you kept appearing in my dreams, bare skin, warm beside me, like floating at sea, steadying me. I let you go because if I failed, I wanted you safe. Then you found me in Rivertown. Saved me. That's fate, Acien. My chest ached. For a second, freedom felt smaller than this man. Then his lips brushed my ear, smug. Despite the red-rimmed eyes. Stay. I pushed him off. Peyton Caesar, your speech was beautiful, but this life is mine. No cages. No demands. If I remember you after seeing the world, maybe I'll return. His smirk faltered.